Okay, I want to go over all this. This just broke minutes ago. Senate unanimously approves measure to audit the Fed, but there were two different bills. I don't know if this is...
It's been watered down. It was watered down because Rahm Emanuel issued a threat to Bernie Sanders, and Bernie Sanders rolled over in the last 2 days and radically diminished what was being audited. So there is some auditing. At least it's a precedent. You will have the, I guess it's the General Accounting Office go into the Fed and find out something about 2007, 2008, but it's very limited. It's much less than was originally planned, but at least it gets a wedge in there. So take it from there. It's a beginning, not an end.
All right, Webster, I just want to put an end cap on the issue. That's why I've been covering this, is because people, even inside the production, are worried it's going to cause a backlash. So you agree with me, plus that's the evidence, that this is a foundation-funded operation to divide Americans and basically, just like white supremacists try to intimidate whites to join them, saying, how dare you? There's a move by the foundations to radicalize Hispanics.
Absolutely. This is beyond question. Now, the specific case, again, I don't know it. You know that much better than I do. But as a general rule, people who are now coming out with inflammatory, ethno-cultural, racist, xenophobic, nativist, know-nothing stuff, or on the other side, the anti-gringo idiocy, this is simply an obvious ploy. These are provocateurs. This is a foundation strategy to divide and conquer, and the beneficiary is in Wall Street, so let's turn our attention to them.
And then meanwhile, you've got all over the country, kids can't wear American flags in the school. I mean, that shows the brainwashing is working. I mean, I don't think the false flag is down to the local school.
Well, these are ideological fanatics. In other words, these are people who, in a crisis like this, when you have the entire society collapsing, many people, especially in the petty bourgeoisie, typically teachers, people like this, they go bonkers, right? They don't know what to do anymore, right? The world is collapsing before their eyes, right? The stock market goes down 1,000 points in 10 minutes. Their world is collapsing. So you can expect all kinds of bizarre, extreme behavior. But I wouldn't get so worried about this. Turn the fire on Wall Street is the great rule.
Well, that's why we've got you here 5 minutes into the next hour. And then we've got one of the people that's in the great new film, Don't Tread on Me, Rise of the Republic, featuring R.J. Harris, Michael Bagnerick, Alex Jones, Edwin Vieira, Richard Mack, Cynthia Davis, Charles Key, Tom DeWeese, and many, many others. Great new film with 10th Amendment states' rights info, the difference between democracy and a republic, mob rule and the republic. Gary Franchi and William Lewis present Don't Tread on Me. It comes out next week. You can pre-order it now at Infowars.com. You want to educate people about states' rights, 9th and 10th Amendment, powerfully done. And, of course, I'm a big part of it. Don't Tread on Me, now available at Infowars.com. Okay, Webster, what we're going to do then is I want you to break down what's happening with the 1,000-point plunge, with the financial terrorism, the trillion, and now they want more than a trillion, and it's just getting worse by the minute. We will cover all of that on the other side and what this is leading to. Is this the beginning of the giant worldwide financial meltdown that Webster's talked about for more than a decade? Stay with us.
Way up north to Alaska. Way up north to Alaska. North to Alaska. Go north, the rush is on.
Okay, Webster, I got so many questions. What's happening with Angela Merkel, Nicolas Sarkozy, Gordon Brown stepping down? $150 billion goes to $1 trillion, the 1,000-point drop, just a whole other crisis out of the middle of nowhere, but not for our listeners. You've been, for several years, saying it would start in Europe and Greece. Webster, break it down.
Well, maybe we should start with the 1,000-point drop, since that was the dramatic thing last Thursday afternoon between about 2:30 and 3 o'clock. That wiped out, in theory at least, in terms of paper wealth, 1 trillion of paper wealth wiped out in about 10 or 15 minutes. And then, of course, they rushed back in with the plunge protection team, the PPT, the President's Working Group on Financial Markets. And by massive buying of futures in Chicago, they were able to updraft the New York market so that it came back. But now, over these days, we're getting an idea of what happened. So let me just set the stage. By Thursday of last week, there was already a panic that was building up. And the panic comes out of the fact that a group of hedge funds, a group of hedge fund hyenas, led by Soros, led by Greenlight Capital, led by Brigade Capital, led by Paulson and Company, but with Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, and others also taking part. All of this written up in the Wall Street Journal. Nothing secret about it. They had decided to attack the bond market of Greece, Portugal, Spain, Italy as a way to find a weak flank to get at the euro. And the goal of that, of course, was to save the world predominance of the dollar by driving the euro down. The only way you could make the dollar look good is to make the euro look very bad. So they began that last December after Dubai went bankrupt out there in the Persian Gulf. So with this, they had generated then a systemic crisis, as it's been admitted to have been over the weekend. So by Thursday, we were on the brink. We were going into a systemic crisis, and the market was already down about 350 points, which is, I guess, quite substantial these days. Now, you got to remember in the background that about two-thirds, three-quarters of all trades don't go through the New York Stock Exchange anymore. They go through electronic platforms, and that most of the volume, probably three-quarters or four-fifths of that, of the stocks that are traded by high-frequency traders who are actually hedge funds acting for their own accounts. So you've got high-frequency trading. These are thousands of transactions per second with no human input. The humans find out what happened later on. They're programmed computers. You've got flash trading, a variation on that, and then you've got program trading in general. So the news that I think is coming out now after the investigation, according to the Wall Street Journal of today, you have a hedge fund called Universa Investments of Santa Monica, California. And Universa Investments, again, it's a hedge fund. It's one of these deregulated operations that flies below the radar of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Nobody knows what they do most of the time. Now we find out an example. $6 billion under management. And the interesting thing about this is that this is associated with a famous theoretician. This guy's name is Nassim Taleb. And he is a theoretician of being a hedge fund hyena, which he is. And he's the author of this book called The Black Swan, The Impact of the Highly Improbable, which he wrote then in the wake of the panic in 2008. So the story now is that around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, a little bit later than that, this Universa Investments buys 50,000 stock options, derivatives, in Chicago on the Chicago Board Options Exchange. And these 50,000 stock option derivatives contracts are a bet saying that if the S&P 500, one of the leading stock indices, if the Standard & Poor's 500 falls from the current level of 1145 when they made the contract to 800, then Universa Investments gets $4 billion. Quite a nice piece of change. And this contract was bought by Barclays Capital, the representative of a British bank, actually one of the British banks that helped to drive Lehman Brothers into bankruptcy back in 2008. So Universa Investments successfully does this transaction. So if the S&P 500 crashes, they get $4 billion. Now, the market continues to fall. At this point, Barclays Bank realizes, oh my God, it's falling. If it reaches 800, we'll have to pay Universa $4 billion right away. So what the Barclays people then start doing is hedging. In other words, they start selling other things so that they're covered against the fall. And this then builds up into a snowball and a cascade. And within 10 or 20 minutes, you've got more panic, a couple of high-frequency traders drop out, and then you've got your market plunge.
All right, stay there. Then we'll look at what's happening in Europe and what comes next. Webster Tarpley's our guest. Key information straight ahead.